talking about the 5 things that you need to be a successful spiritual mentor. I'm super excited for this conversation. So, in today's episode, you're going to learn how to end spiritual bypassing, show up authentically, and maintain your individuality. So, I'm super excited for this conversation. Yay!
I'm excited to have it with you.
Yay!
There's not too many platforms I could jump up here and have this conversation now.
Well, Ty is a beautiful spirit messenger. She's a divine channel, and she teaches lightworkers the language of divine communication so they can be their own guru and serve at a greater capacity. So I'm super excited to have more conversations with her, with you guys, about all the wonderful things that she's offering. And do you want to share with everyone a little bit about your background?
Sure. I woke up to divine communication, literally woke up to it. In 2012, I was part of that great spiritual awakening, that big shift that kind of happened for a lot of people. I was in that big old wave. I realized that I had already been, for much of my lifetime, a divine conduit. I just didn't know that the voice that I was hearing in my head that would help me write poetry or short stories. I didn't realize that actually was a divine presence. And so they primarily, my A team, as I call them, my divine support team, they have been my greatest teachers for the last 7-8 years. I have hardly had any mentorship by any buddy in real life other than them. And so they've been wonderful teachers for me and helped really guide the way in my understanding how to utilize my clairs, access all of my intuitive capacities, and understand that I was an empath once suffering on like the most severe scale. And I'm happy to go into what that means if you feel like that's something that would be beneficial to your audience. But they also explained to me that I was a medium in that I could connect with the deceased, which I had no knowledge of. A lot of the stuff they were telling me, I was like, no way. Because I was a skeptic and I thought that was those people. Yeah. So when this great shift happened in 2012, I was like, the abracadabra came out of the box for me. And once I was a daycare director, teacher, preschool teacher, and administrator for 7 years before that. Teaching is kind of like my love language for humanity. But then adding the spiritual stuff and being primarily taught and trained by my spirit guides, the guardian angels, and the ascended masters. From a skeptic point of view, a lot of the stuff that I offer has tons of validation, tons of resources, and tons of scientific data because I was terrified to step out with all of this woo-woo and not enough like concrete evidence behind it. So I have been predominantly taught and trained by the divine, but trust me, it's definitely rooted in this 3D Earth reality.
Yes. Amazing.
So I've just really been enjoying teaching people all over the world. I recently married my twin flame, my soulmate, and he's from England. We've gone through the immigration process and we've settled down in Florida. And we're just really excited to be landed and grounded and offering this great stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And Rachel commented, love this lady.
Rachel has become a spirit messenger of her own. If it's the Rachel that I'm thinking of, I don't actually. Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, she's gotten her wings recently. I've been able to support her as she's been flying. So this is the gift that I get to give to other people now. And I'm just so excited about it.
That's so sweet.
What we care about really is that authenticity and that integrity and doing no harm and practicing discernment. There's really big conversations that come in our spiritual community that I think are really, really important. Boundaries, respect for other people, asking permission first. A lot of these things, they need to happen in the spiritual community. And I think that's one of the things that I'm supposed to be bringing to the table.
Yes, I love that. And Ashley joined saying, hi, ladies. Hope you're having a beautiful day.
I am. I'm in Florida.
Awesome. And you guys are all watching the Love and Light Show, where every Friday we bring you different light workers and coaches and mentors and healers and heart-centered entrepreneurs to support you on your journey with learning different tips and tricks and tools and having different experiences that will support you on your healing journey so that you can show up as the highest, best version of yourself, first and foremost for you, and then for everyone else in your community, so that we can fill up our cups and serve from the overflow and really be that change that we wish to see in the world. And I'm Lauren. I'm a speaker, healer, and coach, and I absolutely love supporting women and really like activating their pleasure and their abundance and opening their capacity to receive even more deeply and connect and do everything that they really feel in their heart, soul, and their intuition's guiding them to literally live out their heart's desires on this plane, to like show up in your true authentic self, speaking your truth and receiving everything that your heart desires. And we can all completely be living our dream life. I'm like even more like passionate about it as like the days go on, because it's like everything that I've ever wanted, I have. Like in 2015, when I was like stressed out and miserable and burning out in corporate, it's like that wasn't serving me. That lifestyle doesn't serve anyone. And it literally is really the planet that we're living on to being separate and out of alignment from our truth and from our highest selves. And I'm just so excited to support women with more and more ways of doing that. And the next way that I'm going to be doing it is my From Broken to Blissful program. I first year started doing that last year, and I'm super excited to be offering it again this year. More and more ladies are like, are you going to do the group live program again? So I do have the digital program, and people are like, I want to do it in a sisterhood. So I'm going to have a soul sister group community, and be sure to stay tuned to my page for when all of that's being launched. I'm like working behind the scenes to be like, I'm still planning on traveling and doing things. So I'm like working at the calendar of making this ideal for all the lovely ladies who are already interested. So if you are interested in really moving into more pleasure and unconditionally loving yourself and healing your past and loving the relationships that you're in, definitely stay tuned. And you can even send me a message if you want to be on the wait list for that as it gets launched. I'm super excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited for all those souls, all those lives you're going to be touching. And alchemy. Alchemy is basically our job. And we're strong encouragers to other people. I think it's the best job in the world.
It is. I'm so blessed. I'm like, I literally get to help people go through their journey with greater ease than I did on my own. It's like the best feeling to be like, oh my God, they're getting it and they're moving quickly, and it lights me up.
Beautiful. And I, obviously watch on the sidelines and see the work they are putting out there, and I just have literally like sparkles of delight about what you're doing. Like it just makes me so happy. And I felt it when you interviewed me last time. I felt it. I felt this like sensual goddess like creeping in. I knew something was transforming underneath. And so when you announced this like more, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like this more segmented or perfected direction that you were turning, I was just like, yes, this girl is on fire. Literally like the Alicia Keys song, like rang through my head. I was like, yes. So I'm so grateful because the world needs your medicine. Like it does. And with your magic touch to it, I'm just so excited.
Yay. Thank you so much. And John saying, love you both.
Aww.
And Rachel said, thanks to Ty and her team for guiding me. Yay.
Yes. And now she can be her own guru because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Amazing. And then Ashley said, how do you know if you're in an awakening? I'm 100% sure I am.
Is your life messy yet?
Yeah.
And that's a great
coming up for you to clear.
That's a great way to segue right into some of the topics today.
Yes.
Because part of me didn't want to trigger your audience, but John has been such a great like friend and mentor to me. He's like, no, Ty, you really do want to kind of trigger your audience. So I'm actually going to come on your Love and Light show. I'm going to come on your Love and Light show today and kind of probably trigger some of your audience. But I think these are valuable. I think these are important conversations to have, and I think they're really meaningful. And even mentioning like spiritual bypassing, I was having this conversation with my husband last night, and he was like, I'm not even really sure what that term means. So I'd love to just start the conversation, if that's okay, off there with like, what is spiritually bypassing? And sometimes, so my frame of reference reference, my definition around it, is that we can get so caught up in wanting to see the good in everything, the light in everybody, that we don't actually acknowledge the past or the issues that are coming up from within us that need to be healed, that need to be revealed. And what's underneath will always resurface. It will either manifest in some form, issue or problem that we don't want, but whatever you're spiritually bypassing will continue to show up. It'll either be resistance or obstacles or challenges or fears, but there's literally no love and enlighten around your trauma, the issues, whatever they are. So so I kind of just wanted to educate the audience first about like what even is spiritually bypassing. Do you have a different reference, or do you want to share your relationship with that term or that word, if it differs from mine, if it varies from mine?
I agree. And I also feel like it depends on where your intention's coming from. Because like, for example, if I like make something and it takes like half an hour to make, and then I like drop my plate of food, then I'm like, oh, okay, like it's not going to steal my joy. Like I'm not actually mad at it. I'm like, whereas before, spilling food or wasting food in my family would have been bad. I'm like, okay, I've cleared that, where I'm like, thank you, universe. I have no idea why. Maybe my body needed something different today. Maybe there was something wrong with that food and I would have gotten food poisoning. Like, how do I know? So I'm in a genuine place of joy of like, cool, I'm going to keep going about my day. But for example, with like funeral and family trauma and drama coming up and stuff like that, if I was just like, it's totally fine, everything's totally fine, where I'm like, inside.
Yeah. Disingenuous.
Bypassing to me to be like, oh, I'm not actually sad. I'm not actually like blah as a human right now. Right. So that's kind of my differentiation, that you can get to a place where, yeah, in the past something could have triggered you or been bad, or your family could have had negative reactions to wasting things or scarcity mindset or something like that. And you can actually shift it. So you're like, I'm in a genuine good place no matter what happens today, versus, oh, there's like actual stuff coming up in the surface and I want to go scream and cry in a pillow. And I'm just going to say like, it's totally fine. And like, I'm super good. Like, yeah, it's important to feel your emotions. Emotions need to move. And when you let it move through you, then you can get back to your space of joy.
Right. I'm with you 100%. And I think part of the process that presents itself in those moments when it is more than just a perspective shift, and not letting an incident steal your joy, but when it's actually a pressing matter that you need to to look at. I think that's where, again, like this alchemization opportunity is showing up, and it can actually make you a stronger person for sitting with it and trying to understand it and look at it. So I just kind of wanted to start, before we jump into like these 5 things to be a successful spiritual mentor today, I just kind of want to make sure we're all on the same page with our reference point, and we're acknowledging even what spiritual bypassing is, because I have been part of communities that are so love and light, and that they're not actually spiritually aware or conscious. They're overlooking, which is actually kind of dismissive and dangerous, and it leaves people behind. So, right? And we want to be soul-led. We want to be heart-centered. We want to be serving our audience from a sense of groundedness and gratitude, right? So one of the first things that I like to share, embody, present, and offer to audiences about, like what it takes to be a successful spiritual mentor is your mental health has to be your number 1 priority.
Yes.
And I kind of just want to sit with that, because I had a friend who was a strong leader in the spiritual community last year commit suicide. And I was, in the hospital taking care of my son while he was being treated for cancer. And I had just stayed at her house, and I had just spent several weeks with her, and it blindsided me. Like I couldn't fathom how she was so love and light, how she was such a leadership, like in such leadership, how this happened. And so for me, that's one of the reasons why your mental health needs to be your first priority. It's kind of like the air mask on the airplane, right? You have to take care of yourself before you can nurture and take care of someone else. And so no matter what the bills will get paid, whatever the client issues, whatever you're telling yourself is the reason that not today, I need to express to you, like, you matter. And those lives, they'll still find a way.
100%.
Do you want to weigh in on that?
100%. And that's why I'm all about serving from an overflowing cup. And it's interesting because I just went to a retreat in San Diego where there was a lot of other coaches and healers and mentors and stuff. And one thing that got brought up was people were getting so full with their clients and they were so focused on serving more people and doing this that they were like, I'm starting to get stressed out or exhausted, or like they were noticing burnout. So it's just like conversations behind the scenes where it's like, oh yeah, like this isn't necessarily serving you. So like WhatsApp support, for example, being like, I'm always like in there messaging people back and I don't have my own time to do self-care. And I'm just like in here all the day. And I'm like, boundaries, like you need to be resourced to serve people, even if it's not like an actual session to like, if you're giving people extra support, don't say unlimited, like have specific boundaries, like be very specific that you're coming from a resource overflowing space. Because it is interesting to be like, okay, cool. When you're on more with your people or you're providing deeper VIP support and stuff like that, it's so important that even with that level, you have to be coming from a resource space. So it's like, cool, I'm doing my own healing and transformation and going through your own dark night of the soul or whatever you're going through. And you can do self-care before you step out to serve other people. So you are coming from a loving, resourced, overflowing place instead of trying to hold a container of sometimes people's like worst traumas and fears and hardships. And it's really hard if you're not in a good, stable place to not let that affect you and bring you down even worse and be like, yeah, this earth kind of does suck some days. It's like, serve yourself first. It's super important.
And so for me, what my relationship with that terminology is a couple things. Also, I deal with a lot of unprotected empaths. And so they're constantly serving, and I call them transformers. They're literally using their energetic house, sometimes their physical house, to transform lower vibrational energy into higher, and it comes at a cost. So, a lot of times they're using junk food or really working out in the gym to the point that sometimes they overdo it and damage their body. And so with a proper routine and some awareness, proper routine in place, some schedule, boundaries, stuff like that, you see a big difference in that. The other tool that I like to see the people that I mentor also possess in their belt to kind of really make their mental health their number one priority is I love to see my clients actually have some healing modality under their belt that they are, or a support system, but both would be great. Their own counselor, their own their own coach, their own some sort of go to a resource for them, but also some sort of healing modality where they feel self-empowered, that they can apply medicine to their own wounds and their own self-care, like you suggested.
Yes, 100%. And it can be easy little things. Like you can just have stuff programmed in your house. Like when I drink water, I have it that it's clearing me. Like before I get on and off client calls, like I'm doing things to support my energy. As soon as I stop my client call before I'm like, cool, this is like the next session in their program, like I clear my energy. It's so important. I do it when I shower, when I touch water and like washing my hands, like to just have that ingrained that you're clearing your energy all the time. And you get more and more in tune with it so that if you're out in public, you're like, oh, that person's energy was garbage. You're clearing your energy as you walk by them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did a workshop recently called Get Connected, and the divine inspired me with a new tool, a new concept to offer them, where I instructed them on how to open a portal of light and create a recharging station in their house with like crystals and intention and with this portal of light. And that idea, everybody went home and was using their abracadabra to do that. And so I definitely believe in it, and you can feel the energy shift. You notice it, and it's tangible. It's palpable. It's a big one. Yeah. So you ready for the second one?
Yes. Let's go.
All right. And so I want to say to you also, Laura, one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable and confident about having this conversation on your platform is because I feel like you're good at these already. And this isn't coming from like so I've surveyed your performance and you the right boxes. I just think you're a wonderful role model for the things that we're talking about. Yeah. And so you inviting me on the show and us sharing, like, and that's why I asked you, like, please be in on this conversation, because I feel like you have so much to provide in this conversation. So you're the ideal match from my frame of reference, but we have to hold ourselves accountable, right? Like only you can really judge you. So, but I talk to you behind the scenes. You and I have a bit of a friend relationship. So I still feel like you're tuned in, tapped into being very authentic and showing up with integrity. So the second one, point or thing that I like to really guide my clients to being a successful spiritual mentor is being heart-centered, having that heart-centered, focused on the greatest good for humanity. You can't be doing this for fame and wealth. You really can't. And those can't be your why. You have to know your why. And your why has to be impactful for the greater good of humanity, and you're in service to that. I didn't say slave, I didn't say ownership, but this is what you're willing to provide the world. And for my own personal story, I remember when I started my conversations with God back in 2013, I literally thought I was going to be Neil Donald Walsh like within a year. I just thought, oh, this is the trajectory. And so I was like, yes to the fame, yes to the notoriety of it. And that's not how this, I'm just letting you know, that's not how this works.
I love it. Kira just joined and said truth. And also, hey, you two beauties, nice to pop in on you today. Hope you're having a lovely, lovely day.
So I don't know if you have met any of those people where you can kind of identify that maybe their heart's not centered on the greatest good of humanity. And they're kind of after
every field.
They're kind of after like the fame or the wealth of it. And what I can share with you with this kind of like new 5D paradigm shift, the universe is just not really supporting it. So you'll watch sometimes these people, what I kind of refer to as almost like falling out of the sky, where like 5 years ago, they were like churning, and then all of a sudden it's like their airplane lost altitude and it's just not happening for them like it was, or their sales and marketing techniques just kind of feel, really off. So I think that when you're focused on serving the greater good of humanity and the difference that you want to make, right? Being impactful, like in my case, I'm trying to train people for divine communication, right? Potentially I'll put myself out of a job. If I succeed in what I want to do, which is I believe everyone has access to being a divine communicator. So it's my wish, it's my goal that every person on the planet has the know-how to have this, basically this channel locked in the on position at all times. So essentially, if my desire, if that wish comes true, I basically put myself out of a job, and I'm totally okay with that, because I honestly think the world will be a better place for having this ability.
100%. I completely agree.
Good. Do you want me to drop into the next one, or do you want to share on any of that?
I agree. I feel like that's a huge thing that is just like being seen nowadays, especially when you're talking about like marketing stuff. If you're not authentic, people can see it, and more people are waking up to be like, oh, I might not understand, or maybe I do more clearly understand why you don't feel like the right fit for me. You can kind of see behind the scenes, even if you can't see, oh, that's what they're doing, you can feel it. You can be like, that person doesn't really feel like they're in alignment with what they're saying or the kind of path that they're trying to spew off to other people. It's like you can sense it more, which is why being authentic and vulnerable is so important to actually connect with your soul tribe. And that's my perspective of it. It's not just to be like, oh, now vulnerability is a thing now that Brene Brown talks about it.
I know. We're all courageous now.
It's like actually doing the work to show up and connect with your soul tribe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so on fire already. So, because that kind of relates to my third point. So I'm going to dive into that one,
Yeah.
which is, have you traveled the dark roads to learn, love, and understand your shadow and understand the dark sides of your nature?
Yeah.
Have you done that? Because if you haven't, I don't feel like you're there yet to spiritually provide mentorship to anyone. You have to know your own dirt, and you have to be in a place where you understand it, you forgive it, you allow it, you appreciate it, and you have to be able to hold it up in the light, and no one else can actually hurt you with it. And that's where you really resolve and dissolve a lot of your triggers, right? The more you and so you can't be monopolized by what other people's views are of you. Their shame can't reside in there. Could you imagine where you would be now had you not done some of the work 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah, like, it'd be so different.
Right. And you didn't just like learn this in a book.
Yeah.
You are in a very self-realized, self-actualized, embodied space with it. And I think that makes all the difference. So when you offer transformations to people, it's real.
Yeah.
And same for my audience. Not only have I gone through this myself, but I've actually been teaching it and providing mentorship. And this, even the divine communication transformation, I've already been doing this 7 years. I've already taught lots of different types of learners. I could do this in my sleep. Like, I feel that confident about it. And the opportunity that I'm going to provide at the end, like, it's a 6-month transformation. I don't think it'll take most people more than 2 or 3 months, but I am all about wanting to position myself to like an almost money back guarantee kind of thing. Cause I just know, God and I will make it happen. The divine and I will make it happen. It's going to happen. And so with that, when we go through that transformation of communicating for the divine and with the divine holds you accountable. You can't hide your shadow parts. The divine asks you to have questions. And the divine's a great cheerleader for you also. So, those dark roads, you're not taking them alone. You can be very self-guided, self-taught, and very like self-nurtured with that partnership with the divine. But it takes that Brene Brown vulnerability to get to a space where you articulate it and turn it into a tangible something, that alchemized transformation that you offer to your audience. And so that's where I really see the spiritual mentors fly, when they really apply the knowledge and the tools that I offer them to their own life. And then transition that throughout. That's when it really turns into that sparkle of magic, like what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also want to like kind of bring up to people that sometimes like it seems really scary to be in like the dark night of the soul, and it's always worth it on the other side. Like, facing all your shadows and what's coming up and the actual work that you have to do does not seem like the most fun thing to do on a day-to-day basis. Unless you're
relaxing.
Like, more things to heal. But on the other side, it's worth it. Like, a lot of people are so resistant and nervous to do that work. And on the other side, it's always, always, always worth it. And that's a huge thing that I like cheerlead my people on, is like kind of like the carrot at the end to be like, yeah, this part sucks. Like, I've been there. It's terrifying when your world seems like it's falling apart and things that you used to think are true aren't true, and like all the different things, and trying to analyze all your shit. And it's like, yeah, on the other side, it's worth it. The world that you want to be living in is on the other side of that. Like, your heart's desires are on the other side of you doing this work.
So let's even, if you don't mind, let's even talk about like what is involved with that shadow, right? It's shame, it's guilt, it's regret, it's old programming that doesn't serve you, it's stories that somebody else, you may not have even written it about yourself. Right? What else? Secrets? Whatever you're in the closet about? What else can you think of?
Like, I feel like you did
fears.
Really deep.
That's the stuff. And And it's almost like those beach balls, right? They just pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you try to do something different, reach for higher goals, romance, um, I mean, any kind of up leveling, here comes all these things, and you have to deal with them. And so a lot of times I feel like half my job is helping people overcome fears. Because that's where the real work is. We talk about how you and I are like strong encouragers. We wouldn't have to encourage people if there weren't any resistance, traumas, or fears there, right? If there weren't any issues.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, to be in a spiritual mentorship capacity, you can't have just read a bunch of books. You have to have applied it to yourself and gone through that alchemization on the other side, the dark night of the soul, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't just happen one time. It doesn't just happen twice. Like this, every time you go through another, I feel like it's another evolution. For example, I went through a tremendous dark night of the soul, 2012, when I went through that shift. I was single for the very first time. I used to be one of those habitual relationship thirsty people. Never was by myself. And so then I spent years without a partnership. And I'm telling you, it was hard at first, but I so fell in love with myself. And so then I attracted my most compatible soulmate. And that's the end of the story. No, I'm just kidding. So we got in the partnership and all my old stuff showed up. It was like a package got delivered. Of like, here, you still have all these unresolved stories, traumas, issues that you're going to have to work through. So, and it surprises you a lot of times when you least expect it. But when that stuff knocks at your door, when it shows up, it is a blessing. It's worth the time out. And I'll tell you another reason why. One of the things I noticed when I started teaching spiritual development 5, 6, 7 years ago was that every time you tune in to one of these major, it's kind of almost like a qualifier to your like next level in life, right? One of these major things, another clair would get unlocked. Another psychic ability would become more finely tuned. So I used to tell my participants to my workshops that your personal development is literally the keys to the magic kingdom. Because that kind of power takes great responsibility and a real understanding of what it looks like. Yeah.
It's interesting because sometimes people are like, ask and you shall receive. And it's like, yeah, you're going to receive the work to get there, because it would be a curse if you went from one day to the next having like 1 million followers and 500,000 people wanting to work with you. Like, you wouldn't have the capacity and the boundaries and the space to do that. Your bandwidth would be shot. So thank God that it doesn't work like that, that you build as you grow, that you build as you grow. And when you ask for your next up level, expect limiting beliefs and fears and trauma to come to the surface for you to heal and work on, so that you can be in integrity and authenticity as that next level leader and person that you're wanting to be.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And, just speaking to limiting beliefs, coming from like being a skeptic to a divine channel full time. And so before 2012, skeptic, but I was also using pain pills inappropriately and alcohol to self-medicate. And so I had a lot of growing up to do. I was very immature, very irresponsible, and I had a lot of issues to work out. So these messages would come through me from the divine, and I used to just kind of like pass them off to people. And I would end up with like getting this same message from multiple clients over and over, and realize like that was for me too. Because it was easy for me to be like, oh, that's really nice for them. But I got to a place where I really wanted to possess what they were talking about, what the divine messages, and they articulate the information so eloquently that it was easy for me to like start to understand and then apply it and then see the evidence in my life. The divine literally taught me how to grow up through the messages that I've been receiving, and I needed it. I still need it to continue to match the vibration of what's coming out of my mouth. And I think that's where the ethics started to really come into play and be involved, because I felt like I needed to honor what was coming, what the divine was using me for, and I needed to follow, just ethical, spiritual etiquette, of being a responsible human being on this lifetime, and understanding permission and boundaries and space. And, that took me some time to ask somebody for permission to give them a message that I felt like I was receiving. And anyway, so I just thought if I was hearing it, that they needed to know it. And if I could see in their aura that I should tell them about it. And so I just so you know, I really teach against that now. And ask, just because you can doesn't mean you should, is literally a whole module in one of my courses. And it's about permission and spiritual etiquette and boundaries. So the fourth tool or guideline that I like to have people follow to be a successful spiritual mentor is, do you have a strong sense of being guided, and then do you follow through? So which is, I guess I was kind of already alluding to my own point there, which there was a long time where I can honestly say that maybe I wasn't. I thought that the messages flowing through me were going to get me like fame and fortune, and I realized that they were just as much my medicine, those messages, as everyone else's. So would you say that you follow through on the guidance that you receive for yourself?
I'd say that I always do. I don't necessarily always do on the very first time I hear it, which is what I want to like bring up to people, to be like, if you don't do it the first time, don't beat yourself up, because I see so many people who are like, I should have done that. It's like, cool. Retrospect, you now know what that intuitive guidance looks like, feels like, sounds like, compared to your fear or your inner critic voices and those kind of things. So I'm so much better at doing all those things on a daily basis. Sometimes when it's like, go on this trip or go move here, I'm like, okay. Crazy thing for 40 days. That's cool.
I'm going to need a sign for that one.
So I definitely feel that in my world, it's been, the voice will be just there. It'll get louder. It'll get louder. It'll get louder. And I've come to the point where it's like, okay, especially if it's like relationships or ending relationships, 100%, I can be very guilty of like, I needed the pain in my body to be like the affirmation that this is 100% over. This is 100% what I have to do. I have to like do that. I've gotten so much better at being like, okay, this is out of alignment, and I'm not going to get to the place where there's a pain or disease or something coming up fucked up in my world. But if that's happening to you, don't beat yourself up and be like, I'm a horrible spiritual person and I can't ever do this. It's like, no one's perfect. And it's like, yeah, when I'm guided to like go down one street instead of another, I'll 100% do that. There's like no risk on that side. It's like I can 100% show up how I'm guided, or share a message that I'm guided to, and flow in those ways. It's like sometimes on the huge things, it's like, I'm going to need some backup messages.
I'm going to need to hear
this is actually what I'm doing, because it's going to cost a ton of money, a ton of time.
Triggered. And I'm glad to do that. And I'm really glad you brought up that excellent point. There were a couple of things about that I just loved you sharing. When I teach divine communication, I talk about how like it is an incessant loop, that you keep getting over and over.
You're not going to miss it. It will keep coming until you do the thing.
And the divine likes it when you ask for a sign. You're not inconveniencing anybody, and you're just making real sure that this is what is supposed to is in your best interest. You have free will, and you can always say no. But sometimes what's showing up for you is answer to something that you've been asking for. So we don't always get the roadmap. Like I want this, so. And you calculate how many steps and exactly where that goes. It's not really how spirit-led life works. From my experience, I don't, you? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like big things. So, for example, a big thing in my world right now is like I have an international long distance boyfriend. And in December, I was like, cool, show me. And it's like, do you want your first 20K month? I'm like, yes, that's fucking awesome. So it's like everything lined up for it for me to go even sooner than I thought. Cause I was like, yeah, maybe like February, mid-February. And it's like, yeah, like it all came through, it all worked, everything flowed super. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna keep showing up for the stream. And by January 11th, I was there, and I was there for 5.5 weeks and got to be on vacation during it. So it's like, yay! It all lined up. But when you're like, okay, cool, like people in my family think that this is crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. It's a pretty incredible story. And, you know, I know what it's like to be in a long distance international partnership. So thank God we are married and in the same place, but it was 3 years, 4,367 miles. And yeah, the things you can do with Zoom. I should probably write them a review. But anyway.
Yeah. Relationships.
Right. The other thing I want to speak to, if you don't mind, about this whole idea or concept of getting the guidance and following through with it. What I realized, so I was very much kind of closeted and receiving all this guidance and all this advice from like 2012, 2013. The divine was like, we want you to start sharing this with other people. And I thought everyone's awakening process, because I was naive, I thought everyone's awakening process was like mine. Like you basically get a tap on the shoulder one day by a guardian angel and they start talking to you and they start teaching you. So then when I went into the field of like, the divine's calling it ministry, but that wasn't what it was. I mean, that may have been where the divine was directing me in a sense, but I was in this field with a lot of psychics and intuitives and stuff like that. And they were all asking each other for advice, which I didn't really understand because my team kept me almost like secluded and they were my number one connection. They were my go-to. Every night I had a journaling routine every morning. If anything, I was actually relying back then, I didn't realize it, but I was actually relying a little too much on all their advice. And because I didn't trust myself to make decisions after the crap of a life I had created. So I was asking them about everything. And thank goodness they were really kind, really understanding, and really patient with me. But I'm just saying, I realized like there's a lot of, I'm going to use the word codependency in the spiritual arena, and a lot of there's again that healthy respect for boundaries and understanding like each individual has the tools within them to discern and decide and receive guidance and information. And I really like to ask spiritual mentors to allow people to teach them, like either muscle testing or divine communication, teach people the way to receive this insight for themselves, and don't automatically assume that you know better than they do. So I'm really grateful to my team, like I said, for giving me that guidance. But it was a whole new world for me to realize that not everybody that was intuitive was like receiving guidance for themselves and following through with it. Like that was very strange to me. And I have to say, so my husband, neuroscience mindset guy, total skeptic when we met, which I'm totally okay with because like I know how that is, right? So I was like, you're fine, it's gonna be okay. So he allowed me to kind of like mentor him in this spiritual stuff. And he's been very interested and he's come a long way. So we're at a location last night and I'm having a business meeting with a location owner about doing a workshop there. And so apparently a psychic reader comes out from another room, sees my husband sitting there, and she's like offering to give him like free guidance. I don't even know if it was free, but she was offering to give him guidance about which would be the best crystal for him. And she didn't know that he had already chosen some for himself and paid for it by the time she showed up. But so he was like, no, I'm okay. I think he told her I already bought some. And he told her that he had discerned for himself what he needed. And she was like, how? And he said, I muscle tested. And she like even asked him, like, did you use your fingers? He's like, no, I used my body to muscle test. And then she was almost like put off by his empowered, nature to receive that insight for himself. So I just, I really want to just encourage the spiritual mentors in this industry, like let people handle it, like trust them to do this for themselves. You're not going to be replaced. You're not going to be put out of a job. If you can focus your heart on the greatest good of humanity, you encourage them for muscle testing and figuring that out for themselves. I want people to not need us,
100%. Yes.
And because we have moved our trajectory in the new earth paradigm, we've moved from the information age where we're just sharing and teaching and telling and psychically reading all the time to the transformation age. It's so much more powerful and impactful to just let people discern this for themselves, right?
And empower people. Like that's a huge thing that I do in my work. It's like, I'm not going to see you every single week for the entire time that we're going to do, because you need to stand on your own two legs and be empowered.
Crystal shop. You can do this.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to check into the comments for a couple of people who are popping on. So Laura says, hello, gorgeous ladies. And then Joanne shared, wow, I love the word work where I put experience. Awesome. And Kira had also shared before she had to run. You won't be out of a job anytime soon, though. Lots more work to be done in this area. Yeah, Earth School's not closed yet.
No.
Awesome. So we have about 7 minutes left before I have to run for a client. So what's your next step?
Yeah, the last one. It's the last one. And it's really what a large portion of what we've been talking about today is, are you ready as a spiritual mentor? Are you ready to level up in all the ways? Because 5D consciousness is requiring us. It's asking us. I almost said forcing, but the divine wants me to use asking. So you could call it what you want. I feel like it feels like a forceful push and more than a nudge. But it's asking us to really reevaluate our relationships with money, with autonomy, balance, our partnerships, just all of that. And, how do we identify with it? How are we showing up around it? So being a spiritual mentor with that 5D consciousness, you had to say yes to all this up-leveling.
Yes,
100%. You can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to operate like that, because you're not going to have clients. Your methods aren't going to flow with this new earth paradigm, and your message is not going to get across, and you're not going to be creating effective change, lasting change, permanent change. And that's what I'm about. Like, not shifts for a moment, but shifts for a lifetime.
100%. Yes. So and it's powerful. You have to become the person and keep becoming the person. In my mind, it's like becoming a spiritual entrepreneur is like a huge seeker commitment of I'm going to grow and up level and grow and up level and grow and up level.
You're basically asking to be a student for the rest of your life.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, an observer. So I'll go right into what my 6-month opportunity is. It's the Spirit Messenger training. I'm offering everybody the tools to do what I do. And the rest of the training is everything we didn't talk about today. It's the empath empowerment. It's the mediumship support. It's the intuition. So people get to spend 6 months with me transforming their life. But it's important to me that we have this conversation first, because there's enough spiritual assholes in the world. We need more love, more light.
We'll just put that in brackets. They're not quite embodying it. They're just putting that label on themselves.
So obviously we want people to have consistent growth and really be able to operate well inside this new earth. And I think it's a tremendous shift. I think it's awesome what you're doing, what I'm doing. So I just want to thank you so much for having me and celebrate your audience. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. I tried to talk and as fast as I could.
I know, right? I'm like, we always are like, we can talk forever. So can you put in the comments after the show the link to join? And you guys can go follow her. Where can they follow you?
So I have the Facebook community that you're in with me. It's free. Yay. Be your own guru community, because that's hot and I'm passionate about it. And then the online spiritual academy, or if they want to find out more, I got free stuff on there, messengersofspirit.com. And of course, I'll put the link in at the end.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this beautiful
Thanks for
wisdom
having me.
and having this amazing conversation. And thank you guys so much for joining us in the comments and being engaged. And I will be checking after the show as well. So definitely say hi if you're catching the replay, and feel free to tag or share this out to your loved ones who need to hear this message, who need to know the top 5 things to be a successful spiritual mentor and guide and supporter in this beautiful world that we're all co-creating together. And thank you guys all for showing up and being the change that you wish to see in the world. I'm sending you guys all so much love and light, and I hope that you have a beautiful weekend. Bye.
If you want to find out what's coming out next on this channel, make sure that you're subscribed. And if you would like some more holy support, please check me out on patreon.com under Ty the Spirit Messenger. And if you would like to join our wonderful safe space on Facebook, we have a beautiful community called Be Your Own Guru. Until next time, bye-bye.